This here is a 2012 Cannondale SuperSix Evo, a full carbon fibre race bike from an era when weight was king, before aerodynamics, electronic group sets and hydraulic disc brakes transformed road bikes beyond all recognition, or ruined road bikes in some people's opinion. So, how does a 13-year-old road bike actually ride today? Well, we're going to find out. Take the bike for a spin and see what's what. See how it handles and performs and compares to modern road bikes, and see what's changed on new bikes and see how much performance has improved. Is it really much faster than a modern road race bike? Well, today we'll find out. And the bike in question is actually my own personal bike. I've owned it since 2012 when it first came out. I was living in London at the time and doing lots of road racing, and I had a Focus KO and upgraded to a SuperSix Evo, and it was a big leap forward in performance. The weight, the stiffness, the handling, it was a fantastic road race bike, one of the best bikes of the era, and a bike I raced for many, many happy years. And I still own the bike. I couldn't really part with it. I'm not so good at selling bikes. I like to hold on to them. This one has lots of sentimental value for me, so I kept it in my collection, just to remind myself how much bikes have changed, and nice to have this as a reference point for how bike technology has changed in the last decade or so. So the original SuperSix from Cannondale first launched in 2006, their first full carbon road bike, but the Evo came out in 2012 and was a big step forward, a big evolution with a focus on weight. That's the main objective, getting the weight as low as possible, and then maximizing stiffness. And there wasn't really any aero concerns back then because aerodynamics wasn't really a factor in a road race bike at the time. The Cervelo had come out and the Scott Foil came out about that sort of time as well, but the SuperSix Evo was all about weight, and it was indeed very light. Thanks to the latest carbon fibre manufacturing expertise and materials of the era, the frame weighed just 695 grams for a high mod version, which this one is, in a size 56. And only Cervelo and Scott were making frames as light or lighter, but that really was the cutting edge of a lightweight carbon race bike 10 plus years ago, and it's still lightweight by today's standards. And the frame came in two versions. The high mod I have here, the one that everyone wanted and still wants if you're a hill climber in the UK, and also a regular carbon, which didn't have the high mod carbon, so a bit higher weight, but a more accessible price point. The tubes are all very round in profile, almost horizontal top tube, and no drop rear stays, and the rear stays are pencil thin, super skinny. The down tube is massive into a BB30 press fit bottom bracket for maximum stiffness, really trying to make sure it's a responsive frame when you're sprinting and climbing. And while stiffness is the name of the game, there is some attempt at improving compliance. They flatten the profile of the chainstays, they sort of overlies in their profile to produce some compliance, some flex in the back of the frame. And even the dropouts were carbon fibre to save 34 grams, which was a big deal back in 2012. And the result of all that fancy carbon fibre was a super lightweight build. When they launched a bike in Italy in 2012, the lightest build with some fancy exotic carbon fibre parts from Germany was a sub 5 kilogram weight. Pretty much the same weight as that Tarmac S8 I shared with you the other day in the video linked above in case you missed it. So super lightweight.
And even more modest builds were super lightweight as well and easily sub 7 kilos. My team build with SRAM red group set and scope 50mm carbon wheels weighs 6.7 kilos on my scales for a size 56 centimeter with no pedals fitted.
So yeah, a very lightweight bike, very impressive then and now still very impressive indeed. So in terms of weight on the scales, the bike isn't dated at all and lighter than many modern road bikes. But when you look at the bike, oh my days, it is definitely dated and looks old-fashioned and traditional. For example, external cables, like guitar strings on the down tube there. Only on the bike did the brake cable go inside the top tube. Lots of cables around the head tube and stem, but did mean a nice classic round stem and round handlebar, which I always preferred over aerodynamics. So easy to swap the stem and handlebar and take it apart for traveling as well. So yeah, in that way, it looks very old fashioned. And then of course, we have these things, rim brakes, they're called, if you've not seen those before. Disc brakes hadn't arrived in 2012. They started coming out in 2013, 2014, and probably 2018 by the time Shimano and SRAM got their act together with decent hydraulic disc brakes, but they still look really good and they're still lightweight. And this group set, this SRAM Red group set, I think it's still one of the lightest group sets ever made, full stop. So yeah, no batteries, no motors, no hydraulic disc brakes. So very simple, easy maintenance, and low weight as well. But one area the bike is definitely dated is in the gearing choices, because I raced back then with 53/39, which I don't go anywhere near these days, way too big for my wheelie legs, and 1123 cassette, but that might be 1125. So yeah, the heels will be tougher on this bike compared to a modern road bike where the gears are wider range to make climbing easier. And the other key difference as well are the tyres. These are 25mm wide tyres, which are wide for 2012. 23s were fairly normal at 120 PSI, of course, because it said max inflation on the sidewall, and that's what we did. We didn't know any better, but now we do. And the max clearance on the bike is 25. I can squeeze a 28 in the fork, but out back, there's no space for anything wider than a 25. I think the Gen 2 version had a different fork, and I think better clearance out back. And the disc brake version probably had better clearance as well. So yeah, tyre clearance is definitely a limiting factor on the bike. So that will be interesting to see how it impacted comfort. These were great tyres, these Vittoria open Pave tyres, a fantastic tyre, especially in green. If I got black, it look better. So yeah, it looks dated in many ways, but how does it ride? Well, let's find out. Let's go for a spin and see what it's all about. So here we go. I've been riding for 2 hours now and done a lap of the Just Ride Bike test track, and compare the results to some other modern race bikes in a minute. But there are some interesting observations coming to mind. The first one is just how bloody good the bike still is. It still rides extremely well. It's aged so nicely indeed. If you had this bike today, you'd still be very happy. And it definitely blows a myth out the water that carbon bikes get soft with age over the years. This bike is not soft, not at all. It's still as stiff and rigid and responsive as it was back in 2012. No softness at all, no flex, bloody rigid and stiff. But that leads me on to my first big point of difference to newer bikes, is the tyres are narrow, and tyre technology has improved massively over the last 10 years and the last few years alone, and also wider, and we are running lower pressures on wide rims and tubeless, and the difference that makes in ride quality, that smoothness, that isolation from crappy roads is just amazing. It's a night and day difference to a newer bike. This bike, it feels edgy and pointy and a little bit fragile beneath me really. It's giving me all the feedback from the road surface I don't want. It's not uncomfortable, but just, it's a much more involved ride than a modern bike that does remove a lot of the vibrations from the ride experience. The other big downside to this bike as well are the brakes. Yeah, rim brakes on alloy rims in the summer, they're not so bad, but on carbon rims in the winter, yeah, they are crap. Yeah, they don't work at all. They make a bit of noise and try and slow down, but there's no real power or control there. So for riding down tricky little country lanes, which I have here in the Cotswolds, they're not patched on disc brakes. Another interesting difference is the ergonomics. This handlebar feels very wide, and the SRAM hoods are tiny compared to modern disc brake hoods, and really nice actually. And the double tap, yeah, it still works really well. I always liked double tap when it first came out, and I still like it now. but not as intuitive or easy to use as SRAM's wireless electronic shifting, or DIT. So the brakes, the gearing, the tyres, the ride quality are for me the main points of observation and points of difference of this old SuperSix Evo compared to a new race bike. But let's see what it does around a lap of the Just Ride Bike test track. Not ideal condition, but you know, what can I do? It's February right now.
So, a lap of my test track, not a scientific experiment, remember, measuring 11.35 kilometers long and riding at a controlled average power of 200 watts, maintaining the same position on the hoods, picking the same lines through the corners and generally being smooth on the pedals and brakes, and the results are really interesting. Essentially, the old bike is slower than a modern aero road bike like Canyon Air Road or Seeker Spear, which is to be expected, but the margin is perhaps not as big as I thought it would be. The old bike still stacks up really well compared to a modern road bike with all the latest technology they now exhibit.
Riding this bike today has raised an interesting question for me, and one I'd love to hear your thoughts on. If bike technology hadn't progressed, evolved beyond what they launched in 2012, would we still be happy with cycling? Would we still ride bikes the same way? Would we still enjoy cycling? Would we still be as fast? Would we have got faster? Would we, I don't know. Bikes have changed so much since 2012, and lots of technology improvements are definitely not debatable in my opinion. But if bikes hadn't evolved, and this is how they have remained for the last 12 years, 13 years, would we still be happy? It's an interesting question. In every other segment of life, society, products, cars, cameras, TVs, houses, food, welfare, all that stuff, everything has improved, which is a good thing generally. But with bikes, it's not the case. Let me know what you think by dropping a comment down below. And the price definitely reflected all that technology in the frame as well, and an expensive bike back then, with a range starting from £4,000 and going up to over £8,000. This is it was a custom build, but essentially the same as the team build with SRAM Red group set, and cost just over £7,000, which adjusted for inflation in today's money is over £10,000. And it does make you realise that while there are lots of expensive bikes today, they were expensive 13 years ago as well. So yeah, expensive bikes have always been expensive. So hopefully you enjoyed my trip down memory lane. I've enjoyed riding the bike again, reminding myself how bikes have changed and looking at the details and tech changes, and also the difference out on the road. And the bike does ride extremely well. For me, the biggest difference really is in the tyre size and just how smooth and durable modern road bikes feel. In terms of speed and aero and weight, there's definitely a difference there, but not as tangible as the difference in ride quality and just that silky smoothness that a modern road bike, just how tough those bikes feel with big tyres. And so yeah, very interesting trip down memory lane indeed. And do let me know if you rode one of these bikes back in the day, or you still ride a classic SuperSix Evo like this. And what do you think of old bikes versus new bikes? Do you think it's progress, or is it all a backward step? Love to hear from you as always. And if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button on screen about there somewhere, and that button down below. And to see a review of some other top-end road race bikes, definitely worth considering. If you want something more modern, then watch this video right up here. But that is all for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again very, very soon.